Greetings to you. My name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 231. Quick fixes for academic writing. Yes, today we're going to present 20 quick ideas for your consideration to improve your academic writing today. Yes, today. And of course this vlog follows the gig last week for Doug. Hi Doug, you're a legend. Doug wanted me to talk about the very nature of academic writing, particularly with regard to the multiple genres that move into it. So Doug, I hope I delivered that for you. But that discussion was very much top down. This is academic writing top down. The gig this week is much more bottom up, what you can do today. So not in some ways the academic literacy conversation, but how you can action it. So 20 tips, yes, 20 tips. We're going to do this quickly. My time starts now. Tip 1. Increase your academic reading. Yes, I'm so sorry to start with a downer, but yes, tragically, but probably very clearly, there is a relationship between reading and writing, and it's a multiphasic relationship. It's a complicated relationship, and yes, the great writers are great readers, and there are many reasons for that. As we talked about last week, particularly for academic writing, one of the genres that infuses it is analytical writing. And analytical writing is based on you understanding the research around you and inserting your interpretation in it. So after your empirical data set, your interpretation of scholarship, your field work, for example, you've got that data. But the point of analytical writing is to insert your research into the research of others. So therefore you need to have read the research of others. You need to understand the genre, the oeuvre of scholarly work. And reading and writing are linked in many ways, and there's fantastic literature that studied the way in which reading and writing are linked. But reading matters if you want to enhance your writing quickly. And there are many reasons for that. The first is, of course, reading teaches you vocabulary. So I need you to read widely, learn new words, learn what they mean, interpret them, be able to use them. So then in your own writing, you're not hampered by your lack of vocabulary, because that's a key problem, that you might have these fantastic ideas, which I know you do. But if you've got the fantastic ideas, and you haven't got the vocabulary to express them, then the idea doesn't get out to an audience. So vocabulary is everything. You need the language to express yourself clearly. And it is significant that you must not be limited by your vocabulary, only be limited by the caliber of your ideas. 2, learn by doing. And hashtag no judgment. Okay. Writing gets referred to as an art a lot, and I think that's a problem and a mistake. Writing is a craft. It's not an art. Writing has a mechanical nature to it. So write. Write every day. Write every day. Don't delay. Don't hope to maybe get a bit of a vibe about writing, maybe one day be sort of inspired. You know, it's not an art, it's a craft. Don't get stuck also in sort of grammar and spelling. Don't get stuck in, oh, I need to set this template up. Oh, what margins will I select today? Don't get lost in all that stuff. That stuff doesn't matter at all. Create new habits, and that habit must be get words on a page without judgment. 3, references are a gift. Use them well. Those of us who teach first-year students, and it is a gift and a privilege, but those of us who teach first-year students know that the repetitive question we get is, how many references do I need for this assignment? How many references do I need for this assignment? Like, the number of references will determine their grade. Now, by a doctorate, we have, I hope, learnt some stuff. And one of the things I hope we've learned is that references and referencing is a gift. Referencing is a gift, because what references do is they loan us expertise. They loan us expertise. So therefore, don't waste time with sort of endless paraphrasing and then. Don't waste time with over quoting. Right? These are characteristics of people that are challenged with writing, to be honest with you. When you've got a reference, that's a gift. So interpret, 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 stretch, 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 grow the idea, build on knowledge, develop knowledge. So never simply leave a reference hanging. As I often critique students, they write a paragraph and the last sentence is a paraphrase and there's a sort of bracketed reference at the end, or the last sentence is a quote. Never do that. Even if you don't know why you're not doing it, don't do it. Because every paraphrase, sentence of paraphrase, every sentence of quote requires at least 3 sentences from you, because you need to interpret the work of others. So force yourself to put that interpretation in place. And always think about it as you've been given the gift of a reference, carry that reference somewhere new. 4, use headings heavily. Let me explain. A key problem that students have that have challenges with writing is that they can't organise their ideas. Basically, you've read a lot of stuff. This happens in a PhD so frequently. You've read a lot of stuff. No idea how to get this organised. Is that your problem? Read a lot. What do I do with it now? That's cool. This will help you. So the best way to organise your ideas right at the start, so you're starting to write it up, is use a lot of headings. And I mean a lot of headings. This is not only a way to organise your ideas at this point, it's also a way to organise your time. Okay, so what happens is you wake up in the morning, and I hope a lot of you are in that morning cycle where you wake up in the morning and you give me half an hour or you give me an hour of writing. And the best way to organise that time and your ideas is to have written a heading for yourself the night before. So you wake up, you're in your office, you're on the kitchen table, and there is a heading. And in that half an hour or 1 hour, you write to that heading. Now doing that heading has given you a descriptor of content, which is going to be important shortly, but also gives you a sense of achievement. So you wake up, you know what you're writing, you write to the heading, thank you very much, I've done something today. Now you'll keep doing that. And look, you may finish, inverted commas, finish a chapter with 30 or 40 or 50 headings. Don't panic about that. Because let me tell you what happens now. What happens is you look at each heading and you start to restructure your ideas throughout the chapter. So it's like, that game you played when you were a kid, that all the cards were down and then you'd see an image and you'd put it down again and you'd match those images. Great game, fantastic game. And in some ways that's what you're doing with your chapter. So there's that section. Ooh, that heading speaks to that heading. You combine them together, you reduce their length, and you get rid of one heading, right? So what the headings do is they provide a spine through your argument that allows you to organise it and draft it and edit it with ease. So these amazing headings, and you'll lose 3/4 of the headings, to be honest with you, but as you lose them, you'll be gaining a logical progression of your ideas. As your writing becomes organised, most of these headings, overwhelming majority of these headings, can be removed, but you've got this lovely flow of ideas. Okay, 5, huge one. Continually explain the significance of your research. The greatest flaw, I would argue, in higher degree students, and indeed experienced researchers more generally, is that researchers assume that the readers are intrinsically interested in their ideas, that they're intrinsically interested in their research, that absolutely the readers are there with you, they're there, and they're going to follow you on your journey. always assume that my readers are bored, undermotivated, or three Chiantis to the wind. And because of that, you have to write out overtly and clearly the significance of your research. Why am I doing this? Why am I reading this? What do I care? Tell them. You need to be obvious. You need to be clear. Signpost your research for readers. And one way to do that is to continually remind your readers why the research matters. So remember, every few pages, seriously, every few pages of a PhD, take your foot off the accelerator. Take your foot off the accelerator and put it on the academic brake. And just have a bit of a pause and take a paragraph and explain the significance of the research, what they've just read, where they're going, why it matters. Important. 6, crucial one. Examiners are your audience. Examiners are your audience. You know, I'm obsessed by this, okay? So what I always do with students right at the start of the candidature is I make sure they've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 names of the big deals in their field, the people who in an ideal universe would examine their PhD. And I get them to put that on a post-it note, whack it in their office, and so they're looking at those names every day, right? Now, when you're looking at those names, that does a lot for you. It gives you meta information about how to write and the disciplinary parameters of your research. So what those great names give you is a model for your academic writing. We learn to write by thinking about the audience for our writing. Took me a lifetime to learn that, to be honest with you, that actually the reason we write is for an audience. So have a sense about who that audience is. Remember, you're not copying anyone here, but you're learning about models and academic literacy from the great scholars on the planet. So model that behaviour and learn. 7, speaking of learning, learn from great feedback. Feedback from supervisors, from peers, from referees can be really tough. We know that. But what you need to do, and you must do it, is take the emotion out. Okay, oh, that hurt. Oh, that hurt my feeling. Hurt me. Oh, that's a bit nasty. Take the emotion out. Look at the commentary. What are they telling you that will enable you to improve your writing? Now, all feedback is precious, and treat it as iterative, okay? So learn from one cycle of feedback, read it again for yourself, improve it, get it as great as you can go, get another cycle of feedback, on we go. So no matter how tough the feedback is, or brutalizing or personal, and it can be, right? Find the kernel of learning within it and improve from there. 8, here we go again. Signal originality. Originality. The characteristic of a PhD, and there really is only one, is an original contribution to knowledge. And this is, I suppose, the life lesson for the students that get into trouble. Originality must be proven, not assumed. So your academic writing must, under all circumstances, prove, demonstrate your originality. Crucial. Now, we talked in an earlier vlog about SOC, a significant original contribution to knowledge, right? And that's a new way of defining a doctorate that we've seen appear in the last couple of years or so, because significance and originality are actually different things, right? So it means you do need to write that key sentence. My original contribution to knowledge is. Now, I've been saying this to PhD students at Flinders University, that in their abstract they need the sentence, my original contribution to knowledge is, in the intro and the conclusion, every chapter, and you know what? The students that have done that have done very, very well, and the examiners always quote that sentence back to the student in their examiner's reports. So it does work. So what I need you to do is sit in originality. I need you to sit with that word. Think about what originality means. This is so important. How is originality interpreted? How is originality manifested in research? So write the words around originality. Understand it deeply and connect it to you and connect it to your project. Basically, the trigger question is, if you're going, originality, I don't really know. That's okay. Answer this question. Why should I care about your research? Why should I care? Answer that. That's your original contribution to knowledge. Okay. 9, keep it formal. It is possible to mix modes of expression in academic writing. Absolutely it is. But you've got a lot of work to do, craft, you've got a lot of work to do before you can get there. So at this point, when you're still learning, work on the side of formality. When in doubt, be formal. So remove contractions. Don't, can't, do not put don't in your writing. Do not, cannot, every single time. Remove slang. Crucial one that does change students' lives too. Remove I think or I feel. Students who are underconfident tend to use at the start of their sentences, I think, I feel. What I get those students to do is go through the entire PhD, find and replace. And all you simply do, by the way, is get rid of it. I think, I feel, you don't need them. The sentences don't need them. Just get rid of those words. And look, there may be times in the future of your career when you're disseminating research in a different way, where different modalities of writing will appear. But at this point, when you're getting your style in place, err on the side of formality. Okay. 10. If you can remove a word from a sentence, remove a word from a sentence. Bagginess in writing creates incredible problems for your interpretation, okay? All of us as humans, we write long, okay? We stretch, we write long, we're working out what we think about something, write long, right? But then what editing does is it shortens, it truncates. So when I move through 10 drafts with my PhD students, the first 2 drafts, the thesis tends to get bigger because I'm adding new material where there were gaps. So the first 2 drafts get bigger, but the final 8 drafts, the length of the thesis reduces enormously. I'll give you an example. Hello, Catherine. Catherine, I'm moving into her last draft, I think in this coming week. And the first draft was 167,000 words. The 9th draft was 98,000 words, and I believe probably by this final draft it'll be kicking at about 95,000 words. The late great Mick Winter, one of my fantastic students, wonderful human being, thinking of you Mick, his first draft was 150,000 words. By the 3rd draft he got it down to 100,000 words. How about that? Great writer he was, and then sadly he died and we got the thesis through from there. But you can see great writers reduce the length. So you'll often see that great drafting reduces the length because you're getting rid of the bagginess. So when you can remove a word from a sentence, remove a word from a sentence every single time and you're getting rid of that bagginess. 11. Wow, this is an important one. Read your work aloud. It is amazing how few people do this. And you know I recommend very strongly that you draft on paper and you draft on screen. They are different types of drafting, do both. But you find all sorts of different errors when you look at it on paper because paper's a different size. So paragraphing in particular and the problems with paragraphing emerge on paper. But digitally, you focus a bit obsessively on particular sentences, all of that's great. But also being able to speak the words. One of the best ways, I think, particularly to draft abstracts, introductions and conclusions, is to read it aloud. If you've got problems with sentence construction or punctuation at these crucial stages of your thesis, it emerges when you read them aloud. 12. Use strong transitional phrases. Flow. Flow is everything in academic writing, and transitions must be written rather than assumed. Do not assume that just because you slam a couple of paragraphs together that those paragraphs are going to get on. You know, it's not a reality television dating show. Here's one person, here's another person they've never met, will they get married? No, paragraphs don't get on like that. Just like you've got to build a bridge to connect two sides of a river, you've got to write the bridge to connect the two paragraphs. So do the deep thinking. Here's one idea, here's another. How do they get on? How do they connect? And write that. Now, I have proxies for students that have no idea how to write transitions, and they're pretty accurate proxies. So they use on one hand, and then, I know this is a surprise to you, on my other hand. Yet. So, okay, what's the connection between these paragraphs? No clue. Yet. However. Look, you can use these, but rarely. And actually, when I do my drafting, when I do a find replace, I search for all of these words, and if I have accidentally written them, I remove them. I don't like weak transitions, and we'll talk about this in a second, but I really like the bridge between paragraphs to be secure, and you have to write those transitions. Now, if you love your yets and your howevers, know they are a crutch, so you'll need to remove them at some point, but at least make sure you've got sort of some alternatives like although, concurrently, however, therefore, okay? Still not great, but at least diversify your gateways into the transitions, and we'll talk more about this in a sec. 13, don't use a comma if you can use a full stop. Boom. If your supervisor or referees describes your writing as convoluted or baggy, happens a lot, what could be occurring is you are fusing sentences. So while you're working on and working out your writing, aim for short sentences, okay? So what's happening often is you get lost in your sentences. It happens when I read student work all the time. I'm reading a long sentence and I get lost about a third of the way through, go, what am I doing here? Where are we? What is going on? You're fusing ideas, okay? So what I need you to do when you're learning at this point is I need you to shorten your sentence structures. So make short sentences for me. And that single decision will loan you an active voice rather than a passive voice until you know the difference between those two terms. So what the short sentence will allow you to do is use your new vocabulary to piece together ideas like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, students, supervisors, examiners often get lost in sentences, and you manage that problem by shortening your sentences. 14, avoid repetition. Nothing is more infuriating for examiners or supervisors than repetition. Wow. And one of the reasons I talked earlier about the importance of headings is that allows you to match those sections and go, all right, that section goes with that section. All those two paragraphs overlap. I'll take one sentence out and delete the two paragraphs to reduce the repetition. So one strength of tracking your argument like we're talking about, indeed creating the arc of the argument, is that you reduce the repetition, reduce the length, and also probably lengthen your paragraphs, okay? That's the other gift, by the way, of reading drafts aloud. Can't tell you how often that's happened to me. When you read a draft aloud, you suddenly realise page 3 has a paragraph that overlaps nastily with page 32. And you didn't pick it in all the drafting. Reading it aloud, hello, you found it. 15. Big moment, this one. Remember that you write for a living. You write for a living. You are an academic writer. Writing is not a hobby. It's your profession. You may be a scientist, you may be an historian, but you know what? You write for a living. That's how you get your ideas out. You are a professional writer. That's your business. Therefore, write. Don't wait for inspiration to come, because it will never come. Times are tough. Great writing emerges through practice. So every day, write. Every day, write. Every day, reflect. Every day, improve. Now, this process is called, and I love this phrase, deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. And that's when we activate deliberate practice to accelerate our learning. Okay, so the way we do this in writing is we recognize our greatest writing weakness. Okay, so we look at it and go, gee, I'm pretty poor at that. Gee, that's pretty average. So we actually speak the words. You know what? In my writing, that's a bit dodgy. And therefore you're able to speak the words and acknowledge that is the part that you need to improve. So write that problem down. Gain advice from a supervisor, advice from colleagues, look at examples from the scholars that you admire, look at how they do it, and then gather up all that information and learn from it. Deliberate practice. What I need you to do is, when you've got a problem, you need to specifically focus time and attention on managing that problem. Deliberate practice. So to give you an example, I told you we'd come back to transitions. Through my life, particularly my young life, I was pretty poor at transitions, right? The movement between ideas wasn't very good. I tend to move about a bit, and that's how my writing was too. It's like, oh, I'm excited, let's do that, and let's move there. Excited, right? So that's great. Not terribly good on moving smoothly and classily between ideas. And so I had to work on it. And now transitions are the strongest part of my writing because I work at the transitions. I've always described it like popular music, team, okay? The writers that can create the great bridge, they're the ones that produce the magnificent, transcendent popular music. Anybody can create a good chorus. Well, rock you. Right, anyone can create a great chorus. Anybody can create a good verse. If you're good at poetry, you can probably create a good verse. But the bridge, that takes some talent. To give you an example, one of my favourite songs ever, sort of the hymn of my life, if you will, is the song by the great band Dragon, respect Dragon, the great song Rain. Those of you that have never heard Dragon's Rain, seek it out. It is a remarkable track. And the reason it is transcendent is because of the bridge. So the verse is great, the chorus is great, the vocal is tremendous, the guitar, the drum work, fantastic, rhythm, brilliant. Wow. But what lifts that song to something beyond space and time is the bridge. So write me a good bridge. You see, having a challenge as a writer is not a problem. That's a gift, because that allows you to enact deliberate practice and transform your greatest weakness into your greatest strength. 16. Use journals, use journaling or blogging to scaffold and signal writing development. Now, this one may seem counterintuitive. For those of you out there really struggling with writing, and hi, I know you're out there. Those of you really struggling, Tara, are you joking me? I'm having enough trouble writing a damn thesis, right? Why would I be bloody journaling about it? Are you kidding me? Come on. Why would I be journaling when I just can't get the thesis out, right? Let me tell you why. Firstly, the research shows that the PhD students who finish, and indeed finish quickly, are the ones who journal or blog about it. So they reflect on the process of doing a PhD, and they do the PhD faster. But also, of course, the other point about writing is the students that journal, that blog, they're writing. So it's a mechanical act, they're writing, they get comfortable with writing. So remember my earlier points. Writing is a craft, deliberate practice, and yes, be professional about this. This is your gig. So when all these components align, what I'd ask you to do, it might only be a paragraph. Write me one paragraph a day about your writing. Tell me about your writing. Write about the writing. And that will create a fresh alignment between form and content for you, your research and how you disseminate that research. And if you're stressed by the nature of writing, then use that time, but use the journaling as a cool down, if you like. So write intensely and then just write me one paragraph about how it went. And that's great. 17. Use librarians, oh yes, to help with research, with note-taking, with managing your references. Now, when students have challenges writing, there are certain proxies we know I can pick when a student's got problems. Firstly, they overly paraphrase, way too much paraphrasing, or they overquote. So when I see both those things, I know we're in for some trouble because that student has some difficulties writing. And of course, what happens often is that the paraphrasing sadly moves into a whole series of plagiarism activities that we need to address really early. So early in your candidature, if you've got any of these characteristics that I'm talking about, right, I make one suggestion to you. Meet with a librarian. Meet with a librarian nice and early. Sit with the librarian. Learn from the librarian. Librarians run fantastic courses about information and information literacy. Enroll in those courses. Because librarians are in the research business. They're in the communication of research business. So it may seem odd that you're learning about research from a librarian because you've got a supervisor, okay? But actually, librarians are your greatest ally. In both of my research degrees, I had a fantastic librarian. I worked with that librarian incredibly closely right from the start when I ran two very, very large research programs in the United Kingdom and in Canada. Week one of my arrival, I met with the librarian and we had a fantastic relationship. Brilliant, important. Use their insights, their ideas about scholarship, about research, and librarians will change your degree. Remember that your supervisor is not the Messiah, and it takes a community to get you through that PhD. It takes a team, if I use a sporting metaphor, to get you through that PhD. And I tell you something, the librarian is the greatest winger you'll ever have on your team. Give you scope, scale, depth, and speed. Boom. 18. Work through the diversity of writing genres. I am the biggest fan of this strategy because this strategy really did change my life. As we talked about in the last vlog, I had a whole series of supervisors and universities and degrees who really, really hated my writing, who really thought I was a very, very poor writer. And you know what? They would be wrong. But how I gained confidence with all this bad energy around me, how I gained confidence was through writing a diversity of modes. So book reviews, review essays, journalism, all sorts of professional writing, all sorts of interesting modes of articles. When I wrote these different genres, it taught me about academic writing. So each of these modes, do experiment because you'll learn something about the genres of academic writing. So stretch, experiment, trial different modes of dissemination and different ways of writing. Remember that the best of researchers think about form and content. They think about the interfaces for their communication. They think about their research, but they also think about their audience. 19. Don't fit writing into your life. Put your life around writing. Now I know a lot of you are going, Tara, really? Team, I understand. Kids, work, money, house, laundry. I get it, right? So it's like, there's the laundry. How can I write? There's the laundry. The laundry is mocking me. The laundry is mocking me. I need to write, but there's the laundry. So I get it. But for a part of your week, and I don't care if it's 30 minutes, for a part of your week, your writing must be your priority. So find time each week. It's great if you can find time each day. You get up in the morning and you write. That's the best case study. That's fantastic. But you need those moments where writing is the star of your life. And you know, don't you, what we focus on in life improves. What we focus on improves. So if we focus on how dreadful our life is because of that damn laundry, if we focus on how dreadful our life is, then our life will get worse. It will continue to be truly dreadful. But if I focus on, say, improving my risotto, which trust me, I really did need to do, if I focus on improving the risotto, you know what? Magically, the risotto improves. And if I focus on writing with all my hope and energy and attention, you've guessed it, the writing improves. So when you're scheduling your week, don't forget about writing or think you might get to it. Schedule writing first. Now, if writing is below laundry or watching The Masked Singer, then you're never going to actually get to it. You improve what you prioritize. 20. Woo! Be patient with yourself. Writing is like CrossFit. It is impossibly difficult. We look at it and we wonder how the hell that is actually happening. And a burpee's an actual thing. When did burpees become a thing? Right. And to be frank, I often wonder why somebody would do stuff like that to themselves. I mean, CrossFit to me looks like working on monkey bars, but on crack, right? But writing is a lot like CrossFit. We can look at it and we go, yeah, nah. Yeah, just nah. Body doesn't do that, nah. Brain doesn't do that, nah. But if you start with walking, move to a run, do some weights, do a bit of yoga, then your capacity, your vista increases. Writing will not improve overnight, but it will improve. You're not going to move from being unable to construct a coherent paragraph to becoming E.P. Thompson overnight. But the key is you becoming your best writing self by focusing on it. So be patient with yourself. Every hour that you focus on writing is a great hour. You've learnt something that you didn't know an hour ago. How extraordinary is that? The thing about being a pretty good writer is that it is a skill that no one can ever take away from you. It is, if you like, a superpower. And it is a gift. And it is a privilege. It is a privilege to take innovative ideas and move them to a reader, move them to an audience, and maybe just change their lives. Not a bad way to spend a day. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.